99% of the Reds' performance was worthy of a victory, but it was that 1% that sunk the whole dang thing on Monday night. There is one specific thing that keeps derailing this Reds team, and they will never reach their potential until it's fixed.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Reds. Thanks for making Locked On Reds your first listen of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are free and available on all podcasting platforms, including right here on YouTube. I'm your host, Stephen Offenbaker. Alongside that guy over there, he's Jeff Carr, and we are diehard baseball fans. We have a passion for the Cincinnati Reds, and we have taken our love of the game, we have taken our passion for baseball, and we have turned that passion into information for you. On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about how the Reds wasted another good start. This time it was from Graham Ashcraft as the bullpen lets another one get away. There are some bright spots. The lineup continues to hit with 5 players. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys having a multi-hit game down in Atlanta. We're also going to be talking about Luis Cessa and asking the question, will he be able to build on the momentum he had from his last start and do well against the Atlanta Braves? Before we get into all of that, I want to tell you about the title sponsor of today's podcast, HelloFresh. You can skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/MLB60 and use the promo code MLB60 for 60% off plus free shipping. All right, speaking of fresh, Graham Ashcraft was fresh and extra rested and on the mound and looking great. 6 innings. He did allow 6 hits, but 2 runs, 3 walks, struck out 7. ERA is a cool, crisp 2.08 as we head streaming through the month of April.
It's crazy to think that, maybe he gets a little bit, maybe another inning if he can cut down on those walks. But no, he is absolutely lights out to begin this season. And now he's getting that K per 9 up above 9, getting more strikeouts than innings pitched. You love to see the performances that the Reds are getting out of Graham Ashcraft. And, you called it well here in spring training, Steve, that Graham Ashcraft was going to take a huge step forward and say, yo, stop looking at Green Lodolo as 1A, 1B, and remember, I'm still here, I'm 1C.
I keep thinking of that Michael Jordan meme with, and I took that personal. You know what I mean? Like every time he sees a feature on Green and Lodolo, he's got to take that to heart just a little bit. And I have to think that that's part of what's driving him. He made great strides in the offseason. He has continued to build out his game. He looks great on the mound. You're right. We need to get those walks down just a little bit. It's a nice position to be in when we're complaining about 3 walks in a start from a pitcher. But, maybe he gets through another inning of work if he doesn't walk those guys. I would like to see him not give up the 2 runs. But, at the end of the day, against the Atlanta Braves, this is a good start.
Yeah, that's a World Series contending lineup for sure, without a doubt. Ronald Acuna had a great day. They still got good performances from guys. It's just Graham Ashcraft was able to mitigate the damage that they were able to do, unlike the bullpen.
Right. He goes 6 innings. That means that there's 3 innings, and it ended up being more. There's 3 innings that the bullpen needs to cover. They ended up using 4 relievers in this game, Jeff. 2 of them pitched really well. 2 of them not so well. Where you want to start? You want to start with the good or the bad?
Let's start with the good, because I think everybody's starting with the bad. Let's start with the good, because Alexis Diaz got right. That is the Alexis Diaz we expect to see.
Yeah, he had a clean inning of work. He did walk a guy, but he struck out 2, didn't allow any runs, and he bounced back from that debacle in Philadelphia, which we were happy to see. You know who else looked really good? Coming off of a not so great performance a few games back. That's Buck Farmer. In this case, he came in, pitched 2/3 of an inning, and struck out both guys for the outs. Good outing for Buck Farmer. I don't know that I consider Buck Farmer a back end of the bullpen kind of guy, a closer type dude, but I think he is well suited.
Yeah.
Right. I think he's well suited for the middle innings. And once Santillan and Sims are back and you can use Buck Farmer more towards the 6th, 7th innings, I think he's really going to thrive there. I like him pitching earlier in games is what I'm saying. And I thought he did really well out of the bullpen today.
Yeah, and the Reds were bit by the fact that Santillan and Sims are not back, because if your name is not Alexis Diaz, and I was glad that Buck Farmer pitched well, but if your name's not Alexis Diaz, flip a coin. On any given inning, on any given pitch, you're not really sure what you're going to get. And that's exactly what happened here, because Reiner SanMartin pitched an inning and a third of a mess. He allowed a bunch of base runners, allowed a run to score, and this was back when the Reds still trailed. They were fighting back. They were trying to get back into this game, and he allows the Braves to score another run. And then Derek Law, who was the loser, on one pitch.
Two
And
runs.
I know.
One pitch.
I know that
That's
we have
efficiency.
tried. I have tried to talk myself into Derek Law because he had a couple of nice performances to begin the year, but it's flip a coin. It could be good and it could be bad. And overall, this is the biggest problem with this team. This has been the biggest problem with this team for close to a decade now. And I think that, you can explain it as, well, they got to figure out the core before they figure out the bullpen. Sure, that's fine. But we are seeing it. Graham Ashcraft pitches well. Green, Lodolo, those guys are pitching well. The lineup is keeping this team. We're going to talk a little bit more about them here in a few minutes. Keeping this team in every game that they're playing. Now we really got to see how we can fix this bullpen, because until the bullpen reaches its potential, this team will not reach its potential.
No, and I'm really disappointed in what SanMartin has showed us so far this season.
Yeah,
I was really hoping that he would be another guy that had a lot of growth between last season and this season. And as of right now, we have not seen that. And then as far as Derek Law goes, you and I were talking, I can't remember if it was on the episode yesterday or off air before we recorded, but we were debating who was going to be the next guy to leave this bullpen when either Santillan or Sims was ready to come back. And I think we're both in agreement now that the next guy out of this bullpen is Derek Law.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. As soon as Santillan or Sims is ready, and Sims has only made one rehab outing, although according to our friend Doug Gray over at RedsMinorLeagues.com, that one outing, the spin rate was off the charts. He was looking good, so we might be seeing him back here hopefully very soon, and we can get that, just the closer mentality that he brings, to add that to Alexis Diaz. We were talking about in spring training, you put those two guys together, then the rest of the bullpen starts to fall into place. But the more games that you can get where the bullpen is calling on Diaz, Sims, and Santillan versus SanMartin, Derek Law, and Ian Jabot, then we're going to be talking about a team that is starting to reach its potential. And I understand, there are a lot of people that are mad about the bullpen today with varying ideas of how to fix it. The Reds are not going to go out and trade for guys and fix it through the open market right now. This is something that they have to earmark as the number one priority this offseason to go fix. What's going to happen for the fix during this season are the reinforcements that are coming through rehab stints and through young guys who are going to be called up. And that is how this bullpen is going to get better in the short term.
Yeah, what did you say? You hope that someone's got that pin writing, that check writing pin ready to go this offseason,
boys. Better get that check writing pen ready, because look, this team is starting to figure out a number of question marks. And once they do that, if we go into an off season and we still hear excuses as to why they cannot go get bullpen help, then we will have a real problem on our hands.
Well, this is what I know. Help for this bullpen cannot get here fast enough.
Not fast enough. But Steve, let's talk about the hitting, because 5 Reds had multi-hit nights last night in Atlanta. We'll tell you who, we'll tell you who's hot, and why this lineup is going to keep the Reds relevant while they wait for that pitching help. That's coming up here in just a moment. Before we get into that, though, I want to tell you about one of today's sponsors, and that is So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace that transforms fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. This game is so much fun. You can literally go to sorare.com. That's SORARE.com/locked-on and start building your team today. Because I've been able to do this, you get all kinds of different players from around the major leagues. You can build out your lineup, you can build out your pitching staff, and you can compete to win awesome prizes. And in a lot of cases, what you do is with your first team is you start to level up. You start to get better players. You start to grow your team so that you can get into bigger contests that have bigger prizes that can be up to like VIP experiences where you get to meet stars of Major League Baseball. I mean, these prizes, they vary depending on the competition that you're joining in, but we're talking about So Rare MLB game weeks, which you build your fantasy lineup with your cards that you own. Every single game, you get to carry that over. You carry over your lineup, you carry over your pitching staff, because there's 3 to 4 day cycles, and at the end of game weeks, the managers who rank at or near the top of the leaderboards win a variety of rewards, as I've been talking about. Check it out today. It's sorare.com. That's SORARE.com/locked-on and set your lineup and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/locked-on to start playing today. Coming up tomorrow, is Joey Votto ready? We're going to dive into his rehab stint in Louisville and look at what he has done to get back to Cincinnati, because
Spoiler alert, he's ready.
He's ready, Steve. He's always ready. He's Joey Votto. Joey Votto's never not ready. He's never not ready. But I'll tell you what, he's going to be coming back to a lineup that I'm ready to say it. It's strong enough to keep the Reds in any game. And I don't care who they're playing. I don't care what pitcher's on the mound. This lineup will keep the Reds in the game.
I know the bullpen has been frustrating, but if you're not having fun watching this team bat right now, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
Between some of the young guys like Spencer Steer and even it's seemingly Jose Barrero's figuring out, what is going on. They're fun to watch. You've got veterans starting to heat up, guys like Will Myers. You've got dudes like Jonathan India, who clearly has recaptured his Rookie of the Year form. The changes he made to adjust his body and his approach back to what he was doing in year 1 versus year 2 are clearly making a difference, because he is the guy in year 3 now that we hoped he was going to be all the way through. He is just a get on base machine right now.
I have a new nickname for him that I'm going to roll with. If people want to follow, that's okay. But the new nickname for Jonathan India is Red Leader. Dude came into spring training wanting to lead this team. He wanted to be the guy that got up in front of everybody and said, this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to be day in and day out. And he's backing it up with his play on the field. 3-hit night for him. He had the go-ahead RBI in the top of the 10th, just absolutely leading the Reds. Red Leader. I'll tell you who else is really exciting, though, to watch, Steve. And that's the guy who's been hitting third for pretty much this entire season so far. And that's Jake Fraley. Should we start? And I know this is the other side of the coin of, well, it's only 9 games. Don't be too worried, but maybe it's only 9 games. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Should we start redefining how we assess Jake Fraley?
Yeah. And, I think you and I talked about this a little bit when we did our guest spot over with Tim Daniel. And, I'll repeat what I said there. Now, Jake Fraley should be playing every day, right-handers, left-handers. I don't care who's pitching until he demonstrates that he shouldn't be. Right now he is hot. He's playing good defense. He's been DHing a lot, but when he's been in the field, he's been good. But at the plate, he's comfortable. He's dialed in. He's hitting the ball where they ain't, as they say. And keep running him out there. I want to see him in the lineup until such time that lefties figure him out and he can't do it anymore. And hopefully that day doesn't come. But as long as he's playing like this, he needs to be in the lineup.
There's two things that kind of work their way around a stat sheet, don't necessarily find their way onto it, but there's two things about Jake Fraley that really have me just so intrigued, because we talk about this guy as like, well, he's probably a fourth outfielder on a good team. The things that he is doing on the field and on the stat sheet are very impressive. Something else that they talked about on the broadcast today that just absolutely had me intrigued is the fact that up to this point in the year, he is tied for second in the major leagues with the average number of pitches per plate appearance that he sees. He sees at least 5 pitches per plate appearance. And it's funny because right as they said that plate appearance that he had, he saw 6 pitches and he got on base. Like, the value that he brings, not only in the hits that he has, but how much tax he's putting on a pitcher on the mound, is absolutely phenomenal. And then the other part about Jake Fraley that has me fired up is anytime they play an interview with him, anytime we hear him talk to the media or we hear him talk, in a post game, we played a clip yesterday on the podcast of him. Dude sounds dialed in. He sounds like he is ultra focused. He sees the prize. He's ready to take it. And I'm all in on following Rake Fraley as the Reds' third hitter for this season. I love what he's been doing.
There's something to what you're talking about with working the counts and seeing a lot of pitches and forcing the pitchers to work. I think that is contagious. And I think we see that spreading throughout the rest of the team. We're seeing those same type of at-bats from Spencer Steer. We're seeing those same type of at-bats from Jonathan India. We're seeing those same type of at-bats from TJ Friedel, being able to make a pitcher throw a lot of pitches, and then finally when they make a mistake, making them pay. And I'm here for it. This is, you hit it early on with that episode where you said this team is different, and maybe that should be the Twitter hashtag and everything else that they roll with, because I can't think of a better way to describe what we're seeing out of this bunch of hitters compared to what we saw from this team last season. They're just wired different. They're built different. They're dialed in different. And it's so much fun to watch them bat right now.
And I think it's interesting because, whenever a team hits bad, you blame the hitting coach. Nobody's talking about Joel McKeithen right now. Nobody's saying, oh, hey, look at what Joel McKeithen's doing with this lineup. Maybe this is something he's doing. Now, a lot of it just has to do with the talent at the plate, and we always say that whenever somebody's like, fire the hitting coach. Well, he can only work with the players on the roster. But what this team is doing, it seems very philosophical. We mentioned multi-hit games. Will Myers has a multi-hit game. He's starting to come around a little bit. Spencer Steer, we already talked about him a little bit. He had a multi-hit game. And don't panic, but Jose Barrero had a multi-hit game.
He looked like he was starting to figure things out. That game, I was still in Cincinnati. It was that game where he had to leave because he tweaked his calf muscle or his because he got a hit leading up to that game. He kind of started his at bats started looking better, and then he got a hit in that game and had to leave. I think that he's starting to put it together, and I'm on board with considering the fact that he looks like he's starting to figure it out and be able to hit more, and the defense that we've seen from Kevin Newman at the shortstop position. I think I'm ready for them to let's run Jose Barrero out there for some consecutive games at shortstop. Now let's give him a good 5-6 day stretch every day at shortstop over the next week or so and see how he does. I think there's a hot streak coming from Jose Barrero. It's starting to build that direction, and I would like to see him have the opportunity to deliver on that.
It's things like this. It's why I'm so fired up about this team. And there were so many people that wanted to just go scorched earth because the bullpen blew it again. And yes, it sucks that the bullpen blew it again, but there are so many different good things about this team that if you're going to focus on that and if you're going to let that ruin your day, more power to you. Ain't going to be me. I ain't going to do that, because this team and the perfect encapsulation of this team is just different. What about the most craziest triple you've ever seen from a player in Stuart Fairchild that should have been a home run, and then Kevin Pillar thought he caught it, and it hit him, and it hit off the top of the wall, and then dribbled down, and Stuart Fairchild gets an RBI triple and really keys the comeback there in the 9th inning. But overall, that is just the encapsulation of what's going on for this Reds team. They're never out of it because of the bats.
Yeah, absolutely right. The lineup is definitely going to keep the Reds in games. Bring on that bullpen help. The pitching staff needs some reinforcements. And speaking of the pitchers, Luis Cessa is set to face a Braves lineup that is not weak. It is a pretty talented bunch of dudes hitting in that lineup. We're going to tell you what we can expect from Cessa facing those Atlanta Braves in his next start. But before we get into that, let's talk about one of the sponsors of today's podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Well, grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there is no better place to get in on all of the MLB action than at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate and get a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. You place your first bet, and if that bet doesn't hit, you're going to get that money back in bonus bet up to $1,000 if your bet doesn't win. The Reds with Luis Cessa on the mound are plus 210 to win. So you might want to throw a few bucks at that. Cessa is going to be facing off against Kyle Wright for the Atlanta Braves. So you might want to throw at least a 5 spot on Luis Cessa to do great things and for the Reds to get a win. Don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet of up to $1,000 back when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up with FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. You can follow the podcast on all platforms, including YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed. And if you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you know whenever we post anything. Also, make sure you are following us on Twitter so you can talk baseball with us between shows. You can follow me at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. You can follow that other guy, Jeff Carr. That is Jeff with 3 Fs. Because as I tell you, spelling is hard for him. And you can follow the show at Locked On Reds. There's no Fs in that, Jeff. No Fs in Locked On Reds. All right, let's talk a little bit about Luis Cessa, because his last start really wasn't that bad. I mean, if you look at it in its whole, 5 1/3 innings, he only struck out 2 guys. And here's the thing. He walked 3 dudes. And for me, that's the single biggest thing. The first thing that he needs to fix. There needs to be more strikeouts than there are walks from him in a game. I'm not saying he has to be a high strikeout guy. If he can get everybody on ground balls and only strike out 2 or 3 dudes in a game, cool. But don't walk more guys than that.
No, and that's the case. Like, if he's throwing 5 innings and gives me 2 strikeouts, that's fine. Just walk 1 guy. That's it. Don't walk any more than that. And I think that when I look at Luis Cessa tonight, going up against this Braves lineup, I know it's easy to say, oh boy, I don't have any expectations here because I think he's going to get shelled. I'm flipping that. With the performance that he gave us in his first start, you and I both thought he was going to throw 4 innings at most. And the bullpen was just going to be taxed. And he gave us 5 1/3. And really, I thought he could have went longer. I thought David Bell had a quick hook on him. And I kind of I think when we're looking at Luis Cessa here, I think he needs to go 6 innings for me to start to consider that this thing is a legit thing. That him being in the starting rotation is a legit thing, because we've already got 1 guy in Connor Overton that David Bell has no faith in him going more than twice through the order. We can't have 2 guys like that. That's just, I know that we've seen the Reds split up the starting rotation in order to take some taxing off of the bullpen here, but that still doesn't help if you have 2 guys that only go 4 innings every time they go out. So I want to see 6 innings from Luis Cessa tonight. If it's kind of like a dirty 6 innings, maybe he gives up like 3 or 4 runs in that, I'm okay with that, because I need to see him get 6 innings worth of outs.
Yeah, I feel like the Reds have shown their hand and that they're uninterested in stretching out Connor Overton any more than he's already stretched out. I'm pretty sure he's heading to the bullpen just as soon as Luke Weaver gets up here. Luis Cessa is a different story. And if they're going to count on him to be a piece of this rotation, at least through July, when maybe somebody else is ready to come up from Louisville, either in Levi Stout or Brandon Williamson, or maybe somebody else will surprise us, Abbott. I don't know.
Mhm.
But if Cessa is in a multi-month plan for this rotation, you're right. He does need to be able to go at least 6 innings. We talk about innings, and I've told you before, it's one of my pet peeves that we really need to try and switch the narrative to pitches thrown in a game versus innings, because we talk about pitchers throwing 6 innings nowadays. Starters are still throwing roughly 100 pitches. It just so happens that in the 70s and 80s, they were throwing complete games on those 100 pitches, and now they're only throwing 6 innings. It's not that pitchers are throwing less pitches in a game. They are throwing less innings, but they're throwing the same amount of pitches. And I would love at some point in time for baseball to change how it talks about that. But that's a whole battle for another time, Jeff. But
what I'm kind of saying, and I understand, I think that the pitch to inning argument is more of a spring training deal. Like, I want him to go 6 innings, and baked into that is the pitch count needs to make sense for those 6 innings. Like, if he's doing what Hunter Green was doing and throwing 100 pitches in 4 innings, then sure, he's not going to get to the 6th. I understand that. But I am looking at this and saying, we can't have 2 guys in here that are a liability to the point that the bullpen has to get 15 or, God forbid, 18 outs in a game. So he needs to pitch 6 innings for me to look at this as something more than the Reds just putting him in the rotation because there were no other options. Because right now, that's kind of where my mind is. Like, they have Overton and Cessa in the rotation because in their mind, there were no other options. And if they want it to make sense for me, then he's got to pitch 6 innings tonight.
No, absolutely. And I guess if we're going to keep looking at him and stating what it is we're really expecting him to do, I will consider this start in Atlanta a success if he throws somewhere between 90 and 100 pitches and is pitch efficient enough to get me 6+ innings with those 90, 100 pitches. Now, the rest of the stuff, is he going to give up some runs? Probably. This is a great lineup. He's going to give up some runs. But as we just said, this Reds lineup will keep them in the game. So if he gives up 2 or 3 runs over the course of 6 innings, and then we get into the bullpen, I will consider that to be a successful start from Luis Cessa and him building upon what he did in his first outing in Cincinnati.
Because right now, I look at this and I say, there's no argument for me to keep Luis Cessa in the rotation for multiple months and hold Brandon Williamson in AAA or hold Levi Stout in AAA, because we know that Luke Weaver's going to be the next man up. He's going to take Connor Overton's spot. So then you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, Luke Weaver or Luis Cessa, who is the one that's going to make way for Brandon Williamson? And make no mistake about it, it's make way. It's not, well, Brandon Williamson might not be ready. He's ready. I think they're just trying to kind of give him a little bit more of a runway before they run him out there. But I think that he showed in spring training that he has the stuff to get big league hitters out. And I want him to continue his growth and continue his career growth here in the major leagues. So for Luis Cessa to not, it almost sounds a little bit disingenuous when I say it this way, but this is kind of where my mind is. For him to justify his rotation spot, to me as the fan, I need to see a better performance than what he gave me in his first performance, so I see growth in him.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And you're talking about those young guys, Williamson has yet to demonstrate consistency. And I think as soon as he does that, he's going to be knocking on a door somewhere. And of course, all of this conversation, Jeff, we get this a lot online, and I just put this out there. Yes, when we talk about these things, we're just assuming health. We're assuming that nobody gets hurt in the rotation. We're absolutely doing that. I hope that that's the case. So we know that that's probably not how it's going to go. And somewhere someone's going to tweak something. And then one of these young guys are going to get an opportunity that way. But all things being equal and everybody being healthy, you're absolutely right, Jeff. Luis Cessa, every time out, needs to build upon what he's doing to continue to hold his spot. Because I'm telling you, he would be an upgrade to this Reds bullpen in the early innings, 6, 7, 8. Being as stretched out as he is, that would be a big deal for the Reds. So he's really going to have to pitch well as a starter to outweigh that value he would bring to the team in the bullpen right now.
And that's what we're watching for tonight with the Braves and the Reds. And like we mentioned, the Reds are plus 210 to win with Cessa on the mound. I think the way that the Braves won last night and with the pitching matchup, Kyle Wright is more talented than Luis Cessa, but this is his first start. of the season coming back from injury. So maybe the Reds can get one up on him early. Who knows? I might throw some money at that money line there, but we're looking forward to seeing what Luis Cessa has for us tonight. And that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Reds podcast. Coming up tomorrow, is Joey Votto ready? Yes. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I think he is. We're going to tell you why. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft analysis and advice anywhere. That's Locked On Fantasy Baseball. It's just like Locked On Reds. It's free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube, because we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Steve, there's reasons to be optimistic. There's reasons to be concerned. I mean, we are Reds fans after all. Why on earth would it be easy? So what's that mean for you and me?
That means you and I are going to continue to watch this team blast away at opposing pitchers. We're going to gather all of the information, bring all the stats back, watch what's going on in the minors, and keep everybody locked on Reds every single day. I think I'm going to volunteer to pitch out of the bullpen tomorrow.
Yeah, they could use another